Hello everyone, it's Miss Hughes again. I hope you're all safe and well at home. Obviously this week we've had some news that you're allowed to go outside more than once a day with members of your family that you live with, and I hope that some of you have been able to enjoy this over the last few days. It's really lovely for me to be able to do another reading assembly for you this week. I've actually heard from quite a lot of you that you watched last week's assembly, so I hope you're looking forward to the next chapter of Parsley Mimblewood. But before we begin, I thought I would give you a little quiz from last week's 2 chapters. So when I ask the question, you need to think about the answer and call it out from wherever you're watching this before I reveal it to you. Okay, so question number 1. What is Parsley Mimblewood's brother called? Have a little think. Okay, so the answer is Bo. Well done if you got that right. Question number 2, a little bit trickier. What was the cereal that Parsley's little brother Bo spilt all over the kitchen floor? What was the cereal? Okay, do you think you've got it? Okay, it was Cheerios. Well done if you got that one right. And question number 3, what is the feeling that Parsley talked about, which is when you feel like you've been at home for too long? Okay, and that was called cabin fever, and that is what she held a family meeting about last week. So well done if you got those right. So if you remember last week, we actually talked about our school value of resilience, and we talked about how resilience allows us to be able to cope when things might be a little bit tricky or we're finding things difficult. And when we read the book last week, I said to you about how helping grown-ups at home and doing something to help can actually mean that you are showing resilience, because you're actually helping them cope and helping yourselves cope when maybe a situation is a little bit tricky. So I wonder if this week, did you manage to do anything at home that helped out an adult? So this week I'm going to read chapter 3, and it's all about friends. Now, I know that for all of you, one of the hardest things about not being at school or not being able to go to any club is that you haven't been able to see your friends for quite a long time now. You're used to seeing them all the time at school, in lessons, in break times and lunch times and clubs before and after school. And we always try at school to work really hard to be good friends to one another. And as adults, we're really missing our friends too. So we know how you feel. So missing friends does link to resilience, because we need to be able to cope with not seeing them. And I know that lots of you have found really good ways to cope. You might be having video calls with them. You might be chatting to them a bit more than you usually would over your devices. But this chapter, because it's all about friends, it also makes me think about our value of community. In our Hughes School community, there are lots of people in it that make it so great. We've got you, we've got your parents and your families, we've got all of our staff at school, we've got all of our local businesses in the area and our places of worship that all contribute to making our community great. And within that, there are loads of really, really lovely friendships. So have a think about that when you're listening to this chapter, and I hope you enjoy it. Here we go. Chapter 3. What about friends? Monday, the 30th of March, 2020. Sometimes I think imaginary friends are better than real friends. They never argue about what game to play, and they always know exactly how you're feeling. And they don't have any bad habits like farting, except for Fartbot, the imaginary farting robot, or picking their noses, apart from Norbert Noseful. He's another one of my imaginary friends, and he keeps all his things in his nose. In his left nostril, he keeps his violin, his paintbrushes, and his pet mouse. In his right nostril, he keeps his golf clubs and his pet elephant. In total, I have 7 imaginary friends. Number 1, Evil Egbert. He's about the size of an egg, and he sits on my shoulder telling me to do shockingly evil things. Once, he told me to trap my little brother under a laundry basket with 3 heavy dictionaries on top to stop him escaping. Don't worry, I almost never do what Egbert tells me to. Number 2, Norbert Noseful. Everyone already knows about him. Number 3, Parsley, the imaginary guinea pig. I invented her before I had any real guinea pigs, and then it wouldn't have been fair to get rid of her just because I got real ones. Anyway, the real guinea pigs don't mind that she's imaginary. Also, I named her after myself because I was really young then and I didn't have a very good imagination. Number 4, Pom Pom the Ninja. He's an imaginary ninja who looks after the imaginary unicorns at the end of my garden. Sometimes the other ninjas make fun of him for liking unicorns so much, but he doesn't mind because unicorns are awesome. They eat fairy dust and poop rainbows. Number 5, Detective Inspector Dracula. A vampire who is also a detective. Quite a lot of the time, it turns out that Detective Dracula was the murderer as well as the detective, which makes everything a bit awkward. Number 6, the reading dog. The reading dog is one of those big, shaggy brown dogs who just loves books. He loves nothing better than to snuggle up and read my book over my shoulder. Number 7, Fartbot. A genius scientist created him with cutting-edge fart extinguishing technology. But unfortunately, the scientist got distracted and put the nozzle on backwards. So now Fartbot just farts a lot. Most of the time, this is kind of nasty, but sometimes it's useful to have someone to blame. Today, I was in the garden with Detective Dracula trying to solve the mystery of the sheep skull on the wall. How did it get there? Who killed the sheep? What happened to the rest of its body? I had 2 suspects. First, my brother Bo. He's always digging around in the dirt, unearthing rotten old things, and he won't let us throw them away because he calls them treasures. One time, he found a black leathery bird's claw the size of his fist. He carried it around and tied to a piece of string for weeks until Mum accidentally threw it in the bin. My other suspect is Detective Dracula himself, but I couldn't work out how an imaginary vampire could lift a real sheep skull. I was stumped, and so was Detective Dracula. That's the problem with imaginary friends. When you run out of ideas, so do they. So I decided to send for backup. I ran inside and grabbed the enchanted tablet. It looks and works just like a normal tablet, except it uses magic instead of electronics. That's how I talk to my best friend Tui, pronounced Tui. There are lots of brilliant things about Tui, like that she can speak Maori, and she always has the best ideas for games, and her hair is a different colour each week, and she always knows how to solve a mystery. But there's one terrible, horrible, atrocious thing about Tui. She lives in New Zealand. That's on the other side of the world, so I can only talk to her by magic or electronic tablets. Tui cracked the case immediately. Detective Dracula must have used his evil vampire powers to possess Bo and make him put the skull on the wall. Then we played some games together, because even though we're best friends, sometimes it's a bit difficult just talking through an enchanted portal. I don't know what grown-ups blabber on about for hours and hours. After talking to Tui, I felt happy, but I also felt that she lives so far away. When I feel like this, imaginary friends aren't much help because they just feel the same way as me. So I wrote a postcard full of questions for my gran. My gran is tiny. Not tiny like evil Egbert, but she is smaller than me. Sometimes I think she's so small that she's not really a grown-up. She's more of a grown down. Normal grown-ups are so busy worrying about crystals and getting super glue out of Bo's hair. but my Gran always has time to understand. Here are some of the questions that I asked her. Did you ever have an imaginary friend? Who do you miss seeing the most at the moment? How should I keep in touch with my friends? What do you think we should do when we get to meet up again in real life again? Okay, that is the end of chapter 3. And I hope that you'll agree that actually what Parsley is saying about not being able to see her real friends because she lives so far away actually is quite true for a lot of us at the moment. So even though our friends aren't as far away as Tui and Parsley, we actually can't see them at the moment. So the emotions and the feelings are the same. So your challenge for this week, if you would like it, is to see if you can cheer someone up or get in contact with somebody, maybe on the phone or on a video call if you ask your parents, and you can speak to them and you can talk to them about some fun things that maybe you can do when this is all over. Okay, so hope you enjoyed chapter 3. Back again next week with chapter 4, but in the meantime, stay safe everybody, enjoy the sunshine, and hope to see you all very soon. Goodbye.